What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics, and today we got a reaction to Hüsker Dü and their top 10 songs with a little twist on it, brought to us by friend and longtime supporter and patron of the channel, Slade Said. Thank you, Slade Said. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who contribute to this channel. We could not make it without them. They make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below, or the patron link on the end screen. Do some pretty cool stuff for you. All right. Slade Said knows absolute ton about music. Knows a ton about Hüsker Dü. Done some Bob Mould stuff in some other areas and stuff like that. Some Grant Hart stuff. So I'm just going to let Slade Said run the ship here. Slade said, I decided to finally do a top 10 for Hüsker Dü, albeit with a small twist. So keep that in mind. Bob Mould and Grant Hart will have 5 compositions each. So it's basically my top 5 Hüsker Dü songs by Bob Mould and my top 5 Hüsker Dü songs by Grant Hart. Then in the end, it will be interesting to see who you believe wrote the best songs of the two. I will mix them so we alternate between the two composers. So this isn't just for me. You're playing along at home. You're going to decide whose songs are better on this top 5. And then Slade said, just a band biography before we get into the actual list. Hüsker Dü was a punk rock trio from St. Paul, Minnesota, who released albums with original material between 1981 and 1987. The first album, Land Speed Record, was actually a live recording and was fast, as indicated by the title, and noisy, and definitely not very melodic. The follow-up, Everything Falls Apart from 1983, was basically more the same, although not recorded live. Later in 1983, they released a mini album called Metal Circus. On this album, they showed that there were more to them than just fast-paced noise. Especially the song Diane by Grant Hart showed the band had a more melodic side that we had not experienced much at that time, even if the lyrics aren't exactly happy on that song, to put it blunt. This clearly made the band much more focused, and in 1984, they released the double album Zen Arcade, which by many is not only regarded as the band's finest moment, but also one of the all-time classic albums within punk rock. It was a significant departure from the first 2 albums, and a lot more focus on melodies were found here. It's also very ambitious on the lyrical side, as it's a concept album about a boy who set out to explore the world, but found that it's unsettling and brutal. Pretty wise. I have only included 2 songs from this album on the list, but I could easily have picked many more. The follow-up album to Zen Arcade was the album New Day Rising, which is a pretty natural progression from the previous album and a worthy follow-up. I've only included a single song from this album on the list, but again, I could have picked more. It's a very good Hüsker Dü album. 9 months after the release of New Day Rising, Hüsker Dü released another album, Flip Your Wig, which is arguably their most melodic album yet and would pave the way for the band to sign for a major label for the next album. Flip Your Wig is a great album. I have included no less than 4 songs from this album, making it the most prolific album on the list. Now, right now, if you're a Hüsker Dü fan, you're trying to go through your head and thinking what songs these are because you probably know the albums well. They signed for Warner Brothers after the release of Flip Your Wig, and their first major label album, Candy Apple Gray, was released in March 1986, only 6 months after Flip Your Wig. So these guys are out here putting out albums like it's the 60s and 70s, right? If the fans were afraid of the band selling out, the very first song on the album would put them at ease, as Crystal is a return to the noise punk from their earlier years, although much better produced, because they had more money, right? The rest of the album sounds pretty much more in the vein of Flip Your Wig, and it's another very good Hüsker Dü album with plenty of great songs I could have picked for this list. In the end, I only picked 1 song from the album, but that's not really doing the album justice, especially not picking the song Sorry Somehow. Did hurt, but you have actually reacted to this song on this channel once before, I think. So that gave me some comfort that it's got some deserved exposure. In 1987, they released their final album, the double album Warehouse Songs and Stories, which was absolutely their most commercially sounding album to date. It's an album that divides fans for that reason. Fans of the early Hüsker Dü loathe it, while many others praise it. I fall into the latter category. I think it's a brilliant album. I could again have picked a good number of songs from this album, but I restrained myself and settled for 2. If I picked more songs from this album than Zen Arcade, the old school Hüsker Dü fans would have put a price on my head. Anyway, with that said, let's get into it. So if you haven't been with us before, the music will not be in the video, but it'll be at a Vimeo link below. So if you want to watch the whole reaction with the music, click on that. Let's jump in. And we're going to go with the Bob Mould number 5. We're just going to alternate. It's the Bob Mould number 5. Hardly Getting Over It from the album Candy Apple Gray, which was their 5th album. So like I said, the first song is by Bob Mould, and it's a very calm way to start this list, as there's not much punk rock here. It's mostly an acoustic-based song that actually points towards what he would do on his solo debut workbook. All right, I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Slade Said. All right, Hardly Getting Over It. That is a great song. I mean, we're starting off this list with that song. That song is great. fantastic lyricism in there. Bob's kind of mixed a little more towards the back of the song. Like you can hear him, but it's not totally crystal clear. But I mean, I'm reading the lyrics. I mean, you can probably understand what he's saying, but it's an interesting arrangement on there and mixing decision. So it just goes through people who are having a hard time getting by, right? The chorus always now, they're he, she, they, whoever, hardly getting over it. He's hardly getting over, used to getting by. Now he's hardly getting over it. He's hardly getting used to getting by. Starts out 20 years ago, saw a friend was walking by, stopped him on the street to ask him how it went, and all he did was cry. I looked him in the face, but I couldn't see past his eyes. I asked him what the problem was. He says, "Here is your disguise." Now he's hardly getting over it. Verse 2, there's an old man on the railroad track. He goes back to visit him the next week, and the guy's died of a heart attack. And then in verse 3, grandma, she got sick. She's going to die. His grandpa had a seizure, moved into a hotel cell, died away. Now the parents are wondering when they're going to die. And Bob's wondering what's he going to do when they die. And I'm hardly getting over it. I cannot hardly getting over it. I can't hardly get by. Goodbye. Man, that song is fire. Grant Hart is going to have to bring it on this next track, which, as you see below, is Green Eyes off the album Flip Your Wig, which was their fourth album. Slate said for the next song, we shift gears a bit. Grant Hart's first entry on the list is more typical late period Hüsker Dü with some great guitar noise by Bob Mould, combined with a great melody song and written by, of course, Grant Hart. All right, Green Eyes. Grant's just saying he's the luckiest man alive. There's millions of guys in the world, and I get to have this girl and her green eyes, prettiest eyes he's ever seen. But Slade said was right on. The guitar work by Bob Mould, the melody, it's all about that, right? It doesn't really matter what he's singing about. It just sounded really, really good. Well, we got the next song, Bob Mould, his number 4 song. Something I Learned Today, from that album that Slade said talked a lot about in the intro, Zen Arcade, their second. For Bob Mould's second song on this list, it's the album opener to Zen Arcade. Slade said Something I Learned Today, which is to a lot of fans back then was quite a shock since it was no longer all about being as fast and noisy as possible. Starts with Grant Hart drumming, then bass player Greg Norton plays a great bass line, and finally Bob kicks in with his noise guitar. What a great way to start an album. All right, Something I Learned Today, which, this album has some themes to it. So it's kind of introducing that. Something I Learned Today, black and white is always gray, looking through the window pane. I'm not inside, oh, your brain. Yield to the right away, never look straight in the sun's rays, let all the sun shine in, can't remember where, oh, I've been, something I learned today. So he's learning stuff constantly. Maybe his life is not going so great, so he's learning these lessons. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to listen to the whole album in totality there, but absolutely spot on the arrangement and everything that Slade said about it. I also read that the song opened up a lot of their concerts for a very long time. So I could see that with just the energy on it. It's a great energy song. And now we'll go to Grant Hart's number 4. We got Terms of Psychic Warfare from the album New Day Rising, which is their third. So I'd say Grant Hart's second song on this list has a great bass line by Greg Norton in common with the previous song. And I would say even more so on this song. That's something to top right there. Terms of Psychic Warfare. This girl, he's kind of telling her, get out of here. You got the very last line, you got your own bed to sleep in. I thought that song was really good as well. I'm keeping track. I thought the bass line and just the musicianship was fantastic, but it was on the other song as well, the previous song. So I'm kind of keeping track. It doesn't mean it's whose songs I'm going to pick because songs number 5 from both of them were very, very close, but I went Bob Mould. These are very, very close. I'm going to go with Grant Hart. But I mean, it doesn't mean just because you won more of the matchups that I'm going to pick you. But I'm keeping track of that, so I thought I might as well share as I'm going along. So one battle for Mould, one battle for Hart. So now we're going to go on a little 3-song run. I'll give you a little cheat here from Flip Your Wig. We got Bob Mould, Makes No Sense at All. Flip Your Wig is their 4th album. So I said the third pick for a Bob Mould song is Makes No Sense at All. I've actually included this song in a previous list a long time ago, but it's quite simply a great song. So of course I had to pick it here. I also believe it's one of the songs Bob Mould is most proud of. It's actually correct. I'm going to have a quote from him. It's the lead single from the album I found, reaching number 2 on the UK indie charts. So at least I got on some charts. Mould said of the song, it sums up all the aspirations I had as a songwriter at that point in my life. How do I continue mining this somewhat pessimistic outlook on life? How bright is the color of ribbon that wraps this fabulous wrapping paper around this beautifully dark package? How far can I take this thing? It's a super simple song, and I play it every night still. It's one of those handfuls of songs in my catalog that has so far stood the test of time and I never get tired of playing it. People in the crowd never get tired of singing it back to me. What a cool song. It's effing weird to say that about my own stuff. But there are a few where I say, wow, I like that one. He also described the song as a song that the band would play if the band knew there would only be 7 minutes left before the missiles fell. It's high praise. All right, makes no sense at all. I remember this song just a little bit. I remember the name of it. Remember that I really liked it. What a propelling song. What a fantastic song. That thing just propels you through the entire time, man. And I like it. Starts out with the quote chorus, right? Walking around with your head in the clouds. It makes no sense at all. So you're so short, but you're walking so tall. It makes no sense at all. Is it important you're yelling so loud? And then, well, I don't know why you want to tell me when I'm right or when I'm wrong. It's the same thing in your mind. The only time I'm right is when I play along. It's the only time I'm right is when I do what you want me to do and agree with you. And then verse 2, your evidence. You concern yourself with evidence. It's evident to me what you say you've got the tiger by the tail. But I don't see these things that way. See these things that way. Hey, walking around with your head in the clouds. Makes no sense at all. Just a fantastic, propelling song. Now we're going to have Grant's number 3, as I told you, from the Flip Your Wig album. We got Flexible Flyer. Slade said, it's again Grant Hart showcasing his great skills when it comes to writing catchy melodies. All right, Flexible Flyer. That was really good, right? The arrangement on it, the musicianship was fantastic. That guitar and just that melody was so good. It was also a propelling song. So that battle between their number 3s was much closer than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to give it to Mould, but remember, that might not mean just because I'm picking somebody in the individual songs doesn't mean that's who I'm going to pick for their songs I like the best. But man, that Grant song was really good as well. All right, we got 4 songs left. Bob Mould's number 2, also from Flip Your Wig, remember. We got Find Me. Slade said Bob Mould's 4th song on my ranked number 2 by him is another song from Flip Your Wig. Find Me is a haunting song in some ways. It's mid-tempo and really shows how Bob can create great melodies with his guitar. An amazing song. All right, Find Me. Just a powerhouse of a song, right? The arrangement, the guitar work on here, Bob's power in here is just fantastic. The abstract lyrics notwithstanding, at least on first listen, this song is great. Right? It's so well done. So we'll move to Grant Hart's number 2, She Floated Away. From the album Warehouse Songs and Stories, that 6th and final album that Slade said had high praise for. Slade said it's tricky to follow up on what I really believe is some excellent melodic guitar noise by Bob Mould, which no one really does better in my opinion. But Grant Hart's 4th entry on this list is no walkover. It's a punk song based on what is essentially a folk song, mixed with noisy, almost jazz-influenced bridges with xylophone play in the mix. Yeah, it sounds weird, but there's a reason I rate it so high. It sounds like we got everything in the kitchen sink on this one. All right, She Floated Away. The more that song went on, the more I liked it. It's Grant said, She Floated Away. The solo and towards the middle-ish of this song had the xylophone and everything else. I mean, I know it was there towards the end too, but it really did have all that stuff, but it just did work. Like, it doesn't sound like it'd work when it's written out, but it definitely worked. A little ambiguous like Bob's entry here. Bob's entry, Find Me, the previous track, I assume is about war. In my mind, I was picturing about war, maybe the Vietnam War. I mean, it's several years after the Vietnam War, but maybe not. I don't know. That's just kind of how I was picturing it, but I'm not sure. This one is about a girl who's going to do her own thing. She doesn't care what other people say. Her mom telling her to wear the white dress, go ahead and do it anyway, but then she floated away. So I don't know if she left. She just leaves these situations because she doesn't care and going to do her own thing, but fantastic. All right, we're to Bob Mould's number 1. You See It Below. Could You Be the One? From that same album, Warehouse Songs and Stories, their final album. So it said, if Hüsker Dü should have ever had a song that charted, I believe this is the best candidate. It's from their final album and is definitely one of their most commercial and accessible songs. Usually that would mean I would most likely not hail it very highly. But when a song is too good to dismiss, even I can't deny it. High praise. Could you be the one? Bob Mould asking the question that most of us sometime in our life ask. Hopefully you don't have to ask it more than once, but maybe you do. Could you be the one? Definitely accessible, definitely commercially sounding, but not in a bad way. Very fast-paced, 2.5 minutes long, a little over 2.5 minutes long. So definitely could have been a single that got some airplay, but a fitting number 1. I didn't say in the last battle, I actually went with Grant Hart. So it's 2 Mould, 2 Hart, but that doesn't mean that whoever wins this one is going to be my fave, but I forgot to update you guys. Well, now we're to our final song. We got Grant Hart's number 1, Pink Turns to Blue, from the album Zen Arcade. Slade said this is not a typical top 10, rather a top 5 by 2, But if this was a regular top 10 and you made a survey amongst Hüsker Dü fans, I am pretty sure which song would take the #1 spot. It's this one. And incidentally, that's exactly why I picked it as well. It's from the Zen Arcade album, of course. So I think with that as my #1, I live to see another day. In all seriousness, it's a great punk rock song and deserves its place. It's one of the best songs ever written in the genre. I found it was recorded in one take, as were the majority of the songs for Zen Arcade. Pitchfork named this song one of the 500 best songs in the history of punk rock. All right, well, let's get after it. Pink Turns to Blue, a great #1 choice from Slade Said for Grant Hart. I like songs like this because you got the dichotomy of devastating lyrics, which I'll get into in a minute, with a fantastic, upbeat, fast-driving punk arrangement in there. So those are always faves of mine, because if you're not listening to the lyrics, you're just vibing, right? And it's a great up-tempo song. But Pink Turns to Blue most likely means, the healthy color of his skin is pink. This girl's turned to blue, his girl, because she's a heroin addict. And she's about to die, or has died. She's ODing. No more rope and too much dope. She's lying on the bed, angels pacing, gently placing roses round her head. Kind of tells you all you need to know. And I don't know what to do now that pink has turned to blue. I like the way the vocalization changes too when we get to that chorus. So a great pick for #1. All right, now I got to pick my favorite of those two songs in that battle, and I'm going to call it a tie. And I know it seems like I'm copping out. If you're a regular watcher of this channel, and if you're not, I mean, what are you doing, right? What are you doing? 2,800 videos. Get on it. Come on. Now, really. So I will always make the tough choice. But this one, man, this is really, really tough, because so if you want to think about the individual song battles, 5 versus 5 and so on, I picked Hart twice, Mould twice, and a tie. And I'm going to get to my favorite tracks. And this isn't going to help me any either, because honorable mentions are going to be Grant Hart, Terms of Psychic Warfare, and Grant Hart, Flexible Flyer. My faves are going to be Hardly Getting Over It from Mould. Makes no sense at all from Mould. Find Me from Mould. She Floated Away by Grant Hart. Could You Be the One by Mould. And Grant Hart, Pink Turns to Blue. So on that overall list, there's 4 Hart songs, 4 Mould songs. Hart, though, has 2 honorable mentions, and Mould has all faves on his. So I guess that means I'm going with Mould. But I mean, you really could draw a line down there, and I couldn't really pick. That's how good these songs are. And that is incredibly rare. Obviously, the lads from Liverpool, a lot of us feel that way about them. It's really hard to pick between Lennon and McCartney. But you don't find that very often when you got, quote, dual vocalists, or at least guys that share a decent amount of lead vocals. You usually are going to like one or the other pretty well, but I mean, these are really right down the middle. So what do you guys think? Who had the better tracks on here, Mould or Hart? Thank you to Slade Said for putting this thing together. I never even really heard anything of Hüsker Dü. I'd seen their name and I always thought it was Hüsker Dü. It's a weird name, right? I don't know if that helped them back in the day so much when somebody can't pronounce your band's name, but I like it, man, because you're going to go outside of the box, and obviously they didn't care. But Hüsker Dü is really, really good. This is one of my favorite videos I've done this year, and it's at the end of March of this year, so I've already done quite a few videos, but I super enjoyed this one. So shout out to Slade Said. Like I said, let me know what you think down below, and until next time, guys, I will see you.